and must be removed from this council.
We will wait until...
Now!
No dictator, no invader can hold an imprisoned population by force of arms forever. There is no greater power in the universe than the need for freedom. Against that power, governments and tyrants and armies cannot stand. The Centauri learned this lesson once. We will teach it to them again. Though it take 1,000 years, we will be free.
Tell the other Rangers, the ambassadors, everyone in this army of light, that Babylon 5 stands with you. Tell them that from this place we will deliver notice to the parliaments of conquerors that a line has been drawn against the darkness. And we will hold that line, no matter the cost.
To save a race from extinction,
The line has been drawn.
Captain Sheridan must awaken an ancient power.
Are you mad?
On an all-new Babylon 5.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Grey Council.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Community Voices. We are here with newbies who are watching Babylon 5 for the first time, and first ones who have watched Babylon 5 a little bit too much. And we are 3 episodes away from the end of season 2. So we're here today to talk about the long Twilight Struggle, which is not really a lore episode. Nothing much goes on, so it should be a quick talk. For those who are watching on Roku, you're in the right place because it's in the right order. So Divided Loyalties was last week and Long Twilight Struggle is this week. If you're watching on Tubi, not so much. So as always, I do call out the episodes the week before. So next week will be Comes the Inquisitor, followed by The Fall of Night. I'm Scott, and with me is
Emily,
Justin,
Blake,
Kevin,
Nicole,
Andrew,
Jessi,
and Mike.
Mark your calendars now. On May 21, we will be doing our live season 2 recap show. And to watch that live, you'll need to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast version, the link is down below. And also, if you're on the YouTube already subscribed, make sure you hit that notify button so you can be sure to be told when we do go live. So unless something changes, May 21 will be the live season 2 recap. Along with that, I am running the season 2 best episode bracket, just like we did with season 1. And you can find that over at our Twitter account. Again, link down below. So be sure to vote for your favorite episodes. Right now, we are in, I believe, round 2 or 3, and the bracket is on our Twitter account. So go check it out there. Along with that, please make sure you check out all of our social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We also have our Patreon if you want to help us grow there. Everyone who joins the Patreon gets involved in our Discord server, which is getting a lot of activity now, especially our Beyond the Rim portion. A lot of people are talking spoilers over there, and the newbies are not in that one. And also, if you can go all the way, our Grey Council members are our producers, and you can see a list of our producers down in the show notes below. Finally, the most important thing you can do for us is to leave a review, either on Apple Podcast, Audible, Spotify, wherever you can leave a review. please do. And we got one in here, guys, from the United Kingdom, and it is a 5-star. So thank you for that. This comes from One Equal Temper. And now for a review. Their quote, not mine. As a first one who watched the show as it aired in the 90s, this awesome podcast has me veering constantly between how dare you and oh, that never occurred to me. But it always is entertaining, and I generally can't wait for the reaction from the end of season 2 onwards. James, who is, as he says, one of the 10 people who listen to us in the UK. And as I joked a few weeks ago, we are number 2 in TV reviews in the UK. So I'm assuming it's like 10 people, but maybe more than that. We'll see. But thank you, James, One Equal Temper, for giving us a review and also being one of those listeners who's making us one of the top TV review podcasts in the United Kingdom. We appreciate it. We're going to dive in. We have a synopsis from Mike for Long Twilight Struggle. Mike.
While the crew of B5 grapples with space boredom, the ambassadors find themselves in a moment of quiet contemplation. Londo Mollari discovers the error of his ways. Ambassador Delenn hooks up with Kosh. The Vorlons decide the shadows are right, and that's it.
Okay, now let's go to somebody who actually did their homework and maybe watch the episode. Justin, what's your synopsis?
Well, what had happened was the Narn fleet pulls a Leroy Jenkins on the Centari shipping base, and it leads to the destruction of the Narn homeworld and the end of the war. Good shit, right? Meanwhile, the B5 version of Unicron comes back and forges an alliance with Sheridan for the long Twilight Struggle to come. See what I did there? Finally, Sheridan takes a cue from the Beatles when he realizes he's going to get by with a little help from his friends. Cut to credits. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Leroy Jenkins!
I'm assuming, since this is a rather big episode, that a lot of you listening are listening for the first time, because that's usually what happens when we have a bigger episode. So how this works is our newbies are going to give their first impressions. Then we're going to go to our first ones who have watched the whole show, and they're going to give us our first impressions. Then we're going to talk about the episode, and then we'll have the newbies give their questions and predictions about what they think is going to happen next. We will then kick them out, and then the first ones will stay after the credits and talk about all those spoilers that come up now and in the future. So we'll go to first impressions for our newbies, and let's go to Emily first. First impressions on the Long Twilight Struggle.
Fuck you, Londo. That pretty much sums up my thoughts on the entire episode. Like, seriously, we knew he was going down a crappy path, and this one just, so mad, so angry. I'm starting, I didn't have a lot of hope he'd turn it around, but after this one, I'm not sure if he can.
I do love every time somebody's like, sooner or later, Londo's gonna see the error in his ways. I'm just like, keep watching. Keep watching.
He's too far gone at this point.
Enjoy the ride. Nicole, first impressions.
So before I do that, I just want to piggyback on something you said, Emily, about how he's too far gone. When he came in and made all those demands, that infuriated me. I was yelling at the computer or the screen. But anyways, this was a really big episode, I think. We saw the end of the Centauri Narn war. There was a lot of shadiness going on. Shady count was high in this one. I will say the one thing that really got me was some of the acting, especially from Jakar. My heart was breaking for him in this episode, and just the whole interactions with him, with Sheridan, and with, his uncle. It was just really stellar performances. And even Londo being a dick, he was really good too. Their just performances were so good. And I have to say, I really, really am on the Sheridan train now after this episode. Something switched for me today with him, and I don't know what it is. I still love Sinclair, don't get me wrong, but I've now accepted Sheridan and I do like him. And I feel like this was a big, even though he wasn't the focal point of this episode, I feel like maybe this episode is an arc or a turning point for him, that his character is about to explode. So I don't know. I mean, obviously this was a harder episode because of so much loss and devastation and shadiness, but I thought it was really good. And I think that this is going to be something that kind of sparks and takes us to the next level. And you've been saying, Scott, that it's just this full steam ahead. And I think this episode was literally the pedal to the metal. This was it. This was the catapult. So good episode. Great episode.
Before Long Twilight Struggle came out, JMS put this in the Usenets. Hell, In some ways, when compared with Struggle, The Coming of Shadows is like comedy in which nothing much happens. So even JMS is like, yeah, it's getting a little more impactful now. Much like a Mass Driver. Ha 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 ha. Andrew, first impressions.
I like that it kind of seems like it's like everything's starting to finally fall into place for this great war that we've been hearing about in the intro for this entire season. And I took note of a couple of characters from almost an entire season's worth of episodes coming back, and it seems like they're still relevant.
As the intro says, this was the year that the Great War came upon us all. Not that it was here all year, but it came upon us all this year. Jessi, first impressions.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has kind of said it. Like, Lando's a dick. Like, it's so funny how in season 1, I thought Jakar was the bad guy and Londo, was my favorite. And then here we are. I'm in an episode watching Jakar where I want to hug him. And then it's like, it's so sad because, like Nicole said during the meeting of all the ambassadors and the not aligned, what is it? Help.
The League of Non-Aligned Worlds.
Yep. Thank you. They, as Londo is screaming at them. If I was Sheridan, I would have been like, you can sit the fuck down or get the fuck out. Like, you're not making demands on my ship. So, it was interesting. And it was, I liked it.
And Justin, first impressions.
I mean, to borrow from Pierce Brown again, shit escalates, right? Yeah, fuck Londo, but also fuck Rifa. That motherfucker pulled a Munich Accord, ripped up every fucking treaty, and nuked a planet. Fuck that guy. Now, again, I don't really want to go pro Londo here, but you can tell he's struggling with his emotions with this because he fights Rifa on even the fight on the first place. You can see the disgust in his face on the flagship. And then even dealing as heartbreaking as that whole council scene was, which we'll get into that. That's some of the best acting I've ever seen in the entire series so far. But that whole council scene, you can even look on his face. He does not like what he's doing. But again, that's where my sympathy with him ends, because he made his bed. He has to fucking sleep in it now. And so whatever ended up happening with Londo, long term, he has to deal with the repercussions of his actions, even though you can even tell he doesn't want to have anything to do with the shadows anymore. I think he could probably take back a lot of what he's done if he could, but you can't. So guess what, Londo? You just have to deal with it. So glad to see Draw back. So glad to see Draw back. That's a character. Is that the same actor?
No, it's not. So this is the actor who originally played Drawl is still a supporting actor. He does stuff on B5, but he was in a theater production when this episode was produced, so they had to go with a different actor. That's
what I thought. Like, I didn't know if they de-aged him, because even he says in the episode, I'm like 30 years younger now. So I didn't know if it was I didn't have time to go back and check the previous episode, but I didn't know if it was the same actor or if they just de-aged him a little bit. But
that was their excuse, was he was de-aged, but really it's a different actor.
Yeah. But and then a name I've been waiting to hear, Zathras.
Ha! I'm glad somebody caught it.
I wrote that down too.
So glad to hear that name again. And now we kind of see where Zathras starts to work his way into the story.
The plot thickens.
So,
Zathras!
That is all for now.
I recognize that some of our newbies aren't sci-fi fans, and some people who listen to us may not be sci-fi fans. So, Justin, you mentioned nuking the planet. I just want to go into real quick what a mass driver is. So a mass driver is exactly what it sounds like. It takes the mass of an asteroid and throws it at a planet. So what they are doing, they are not launching torpedoes or nukes. They are taking asteroids from space and tossing them at the planet. So it's kind of actually what happened in The Expanse. If you read or watch The Expanse, kind of same idea. I wonder if they got it from here.
It's still fucking horrible, whatever.
Oh, it's even worse, I would think.
Yeah.
And it only took one asteroid to kill the dinosaurs. So.
Exactly. And they
they were hurling dozens of them. So
Yep. So that's what a mass driver is for those playing the home game. Okay.
But I just used nuking as a simplified.
Oh no, I wasn't questioning your knowledge. I know there are some people who probably don't know what that is. So I was just going into more detail. So let's go to our first ones now. Again, these are folks who have watched the entire series at least once or twice, if not 100 times. Mike, first impressions on Long Twilight Struggle.
Pretty boring episode overall.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it?
It's not a lot going on in it. No, it's absolutely fantastic. What else can you say? Top-notch acting all around. And we get William Morgan Shepherd back for the second time without a butthole on his head this time. And I wonder, did any of you catch that? That's who that was? I'm curious. There are a lot of nodding heads. Okay. Just it, like Justin and others have said, everything's starting to come together and it full steam ahead. So it's great.
I love Shepard because that voice, even if he's behind heavy makeup, his voice is just, I love it. The thing that always reminds me of is he played the villain on Elvira, that movie from the 80s. And that voice from then on out has been ingrained in my head because I watched that when I was a young kid. And his son's the same way. His son has an amazing voice.
Yeah.
Are we talking about just Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark Shepherd is one of my favorite actors.
Jakar's uncle, the war leader. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Who played the Soul Hunter in episode 2. Or episode 1. Yes, episode 2.
Okay.
Yep, that's a hint at the butthole. Okay, let's go to Kevin. First impressions.
The scene of Londo looking out the window at the Narn homeworld is pretty powerful. You know, the look on his face is both, no sympathy whatsoever for Londo, but it is pained and it is, I wish we weren't here almost, but it's too late, man. You made your bed and now you are destroying an entire world over your need for conquest. And then the scene in the council chamber is just, it's amazing. It's an iconic. I will say this, when we spoke to Peter after the newbies had left, he did talk about this scene and how it was one to film, big time fun episode to film for them because it was especially for him. It definitely shows his acting ability, and yeah, you really feel for Jakar through this. You really wish that his favorite family member Justin had listened to him, but not so much. Yeah, this is an amazing episode.
Blake, first impressions.
So much like Kevin, one of the reasons this episode is amongst my favorites is the range of acting that it shows, particularly with Peter and with Andre Katsoulis. And we've seen Katsoulis in other shows in sci-fi and other shows in general, and his acting ability, either one of those two can command a screen anytime they're on it. But even thinking about with Londo, you've mentioned that scene with him on the ship watching the destruction. The ability, there was no lines in that. There was no dialogue at all. He had to act that out simply by the looks on his face and the physicality of that moment with how he was reacting. And, that's not the easiest thing to do. And he did that so well. And the same thing in the council chamber when Jakar was giving that last impassioned speech. And you could see those looks on his face without a word of dialogue from Londo's mouth and could see what he was thinking. To me, this is one of the most powerful episodes with the acting in the entire series. There's one maybe that tops it that we'll get to later, as far as, especially the dynamic with these two actors and these two characters together. But this right here, I think, is when the show hit a high point.
The episode you just referenced was also referenced by Peter in our Beyond the Rim interview section, which is why you newbies still can't listen to it, because there's other stuff to come. Yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes as well. It's one of the highest ranked episodes in the series, and I know a lot of people say Coming of Shadows is a huge episode for season 2, and it is. And actually, this Coming of Shadows is rated number 1 in the Lurker's Guide survey. But this one is really up there. It's not my favorite episode of the season, though. We haven't gotten there yet, but it's really, really high up there. A couple of things I wanted to throw out. This the Long Twilight Struggle is actually taken from a quote from JFK, and it reads, "Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though in battle we are, but as a call to bear the burdens of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patience in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Which, if that doesn't outline what B5 is all about, I don't know what does.
It also is actually the name of one of the best board games about the Cold War that exists. Is Twilight Struggle.
Nice.
So a very interesting way to use that phrase among many different lines.
A couple other things I want to throw out. Blake, you hit on the dynamic between Peter Jurasik and Andreas Katsoulis, which is amazing. I also love that Delenn is still getting a lot more to do, not just with the Sheridan dynamic, although that's playing out as well, but just Delenn, Mira Furlan is getting a lot to chew on, and I really appreciate that. Along with that, too, you guys are continuing to talk about the Londo decline, which obviously it's there, and that scene with him watching Narn fall is really dramatic. But the one question I have for all of you, and this is not a spoiler because I'm not going to tell you which way it goes. We heard a few episodes ago that Londo was done working with Mr. Morden. And we also heard that Lord Rifa was working with Mr. Morden. So my question to all of you is, do you think that Londo actually had to reach out to Mr. Morden to get the shadows to show up where they did? Or was it just like your friends are going to be there and there's nothing you can do about it? How do you read that?
I read it as setting Londo up because they were going to show up one way or the other, and Rifa's putting him on the spot to make a decision. And if he chooses wrong, Rifa's going to come after him.
I agree.
Rifa
100%.
seems like that kind of backstabbing dick, to be honest.
So to that point, you think Londo did reach out to Mr. Morden?
Yeah,
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll go the other way. I don't. I think that, no. I'll say no.
That the shadows were already going to be there because Rifa asked them, and Londo had no control.
Well, no, I think that because Rifa, maybe it was just an act, like Emily was saying, but the fact that Rifa had to beg him to send his forces to, defend this planet.
Did he beg him?
Really?
You said your friends
sounded like it.
We'll have your friends there.
And so it just says, well, no, but say we need your forces. We need your people there in order, like this attack can't take place unless you're involved. So that was maybe Rifa trying to maybe push Londo to make the right choice. But I don't know. I think Londo's got more pull with Morden than Rifa does at this point, but I could be wrong.
and since Rifa specifically refers to them as Londo's forces, like trying
Londo's friends.
Yeah. He's trying to drive home that connection. So
I think Emily was right on the Rifa kind of framing him and trying to set it up on him, but I think maybe he didn't do it. I think Rifa probably had it already planned out because they already had everything. They already had everyone in position. They already had everything ready to go. And then he was like, we need your friends to be there or whatever. So I think maybe Rifa did reach out and have it planned ahead of time, and maybe Londo didn't. But also I could see where Rifa probably would have framed Londo and tried to put it back on him, and also could have been testing him to see if he would reach out, and Morden maybe would have told him. I don't know. Like, I don't know what their dynamic is, but I do think that, like, if Londo didn't agree to do it, then Rifa would have basically stabbed Londo in the back and did something to him to get him ousted or something.
Justin, Jessi, I'm going to wrap up my first impressions and I'll just dive into you guys. Half of you are wrong and half of you are right. We'll see. Along with that, the last thing I want to hit on real quick is the dynamic again, G'Kar and Londo. And Jessi, you pointed out, one of the things I love the most about showing Babylon 5 to somebody for the first time is in the gathering, you are told flat out, G'Kar is the mustache twirling bad guy. And we are supposed to hate him. Beep, beep. And Londo is the buffoon who is just there because his dying race says he has to be there because he has nowhere else to be. So he is a dying ambassador and his race is a dying people. And I just love how JMS sets you up like that and then says, now let's do something different. I love the character changes and how they're developed. It's so much fun. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the general discussion. Justin, where do you want to go first?
Well, I was just going to ask, as a follow-up to kind of the previous conversation, what does Rifa have to gain by propping up Londo? You can tell they're becoming rivals. And to me, this is jumping into questions and predictions territory, but they're eventually going to come to a head. And where it's going to be only one of them, I think, is going to survive. And I just don't see where what Rifa gains by giving Londo the credit for the destruction of the Narn fleet. Like, to me, it just doesn't make sense. So I guess I go back to the point of, I think Rifa honestly had to almost beg Londo to get the Shadows involved, even though Rifa is in contact with more than the Shadows himself. But again, I'm either on the right side of the fence or the wrong side of the fence. We'll find out beyond the rim.
I see it as, to Justin's point, if Chatter gets back to B5, it undercuts Londo's position.
Jessi, what do you got?
And so I guess just to play off of that, I think that Rifa had his out. If shit would have gone sideways, it would have been Londo's fault. And that's kind of exactly how I saw it. I could be completely wrong, but the whole time it looked like it was you do this and you get Morden involved and blah, blah. But I honestly don't think that Morden's that picky. Like if Rifa wanted a hold of Morden, I think Rifa easily could have gotten a hold of him and done the exact same thing that Londo did. So I don't know, without Londo, I would assume it would have still happened the way it did. But with Londo, they had an out. If shit goes bad, look what Londo did. If shit goes good, then look what Rifa did. So
yeah, Rifa's trying to take all the power and none of the responsibility of it.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
Remember, Rifa doesn't care. He flat out said it when the Emperor died. I'm okay with being damned because we're going to get what we want. He didn't care.
And I also think that what Rifa has to gain is that he'll become emperor, basically, is what he wants. He wants to be in charge. And if you notice, too, when Londo was watching TV in his room, they were talking about on the news, like about how, the Centari were dancing in the streets and all this. But at the very end, they said they were going to start taking over little planets adjacent to Narn. And Londo looked like, wait, what? So Londo realized, I think at that point he fucked up because he didn't know anything about that plan. And that wasn't necessarily in the plan. So his face kind of read like, excuse me, So I think Rifa is making a power play and he was just using Londo as a pawn.
That makes sense because really, let's just call it what it is. Rifa's de facto in control of the Republic. You have an emperor as a figurehead, but Rifa's calling shots. And they're setting up the emperor to do all the little goodwill stuff with the people, but it's Rifa sitting in the chair, as we saw in the episode. So,
and this is a good point to point out that we did find out who the new emperor is now, too. Emperor Cartagia. Let's real quick take a sidetrack and talk about Epsilon 3, Drasl, Delenn, Sheridan, and the Rangers. Nicole.
So I really loved that whole plot of that whole interaction. First of all, I thought it was hilarious that Sheridan was in the shower and he comes out and there's just a vision of a man in his room, like, should I come back when you're dressed? That kind of thing. But Sheridan was actually excited to interact with him and meet him. And I thought that was really cool. And it was funny because when Delenn stopped him, she was like, I was in a hurry. She goes, yeah, I know. He came to me too. Get your head out of your ass. I already know, So I thought that was pretty funny. And when they went down there to go see him, I also want to point out Garibaldi didn't want them to go. He thought it was a trick. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I know Ivanova kind of confirmed it was from that planet. But when they went down there and Sheridan goes, I don't think I ever want to leave. I thought that was kind of cool. But my favorite part of that whole interaction, second favorite part, was when Delenn says, abso-frackin-lutely, damn it. And she said that she was studying the way he used language and wanted to know if he approved. And he said, we'll talk about that later. I also really enjoyed the interaction between Drasl and Sheridan. And he really knew everything about Sheridan. He was he pointed out all these things about him. And even, Sheridan's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, yes, you do. And, formed the alliance with him. I thought that was a crucial thing because I know that Earth and all these people are going to want that power. And this guy chose Sheridan to make the alliance with, to battle, I guess, the shadows that are coming. So I just thought that whole scene was awesome and it was fun. It was kind of lighthearted, but it was also kind of serious. And I thought it was a big turning point.
2 quick points on that. We were talking a lot about how there's some scenes that don't make sense in the original HBO Max cut or the order. And on Tubi, it still doesn't make sense. And this is one of the major ones, and this is one of the last ones where if you're watching in different orders, it gets a little wonky. So Delenn laughed at that, or made that joke about abso-freaking-lutely. She heard that in the previous episode, unless you watch the HBO Max or the Tubi cut, because on that one, Divided Loyalties comes after this episode. So that's where things get a little wonky depending on what viewing order you got. The other thing I wanted to throw out there is I just love the little fun things that JMS does with his script. You mentioned the shower scene. If you watch that scene, the Corbin, or whatever his last name is, or first name is, says, get a hold of Ivanova. And then we cut to a quarters and we see a uniform and we see a shower and we're like, oh, we're going to get an Ivanova shower scene. And then we see the flabby back of John Sheridan. I was like, JMS, I love you. You just throw stuff at the wall. It's great. Emily, what do you got?
I thought it was hilarious that the first time Drasl contacts Sheridan, he's getting out of the shower and is like dripping wet, and he's just standing there and has this look like, yeah, I'd really like to put some clothes on. And Drasl's like, oh, would you like to get dressed? And he's like, by this time, no, it's fine because you just keep talking. Like the man just keeps talking. But I think the part I really enjoyed with the whole Ranger aspect of it was Sheridan realizing just how much Garibaldi knows. Like, because he can kind of come across as like a bumbling goofus, but this guy actually knows what's going on on the station, and like the bumblingness seems like kind of an act so people don't realize just how competent he might be, because then he could become a target for those trying to like undercut security at the station. But I thought it was kind of funny when Sheridan was like, wait, you've known about this for how long?
I still love the fact that Sheridan likes to collect conspiracies and the dude keeps having stuff fly over his head. It's cute. Justin, what do you got?
I mean, that's also pretty much what I was going to say, that I think that the fact that Sheridan realizes Garibaldi knows a lot more than he does about what's going on around the station is absolutely perfect. And the fact that you're starting to see not only, because I think previously we only saw human Rangers and now we're seeing Minbari Rangers. And I'm curious to see, again, diving a little bit into questions and prediction territory, are we going to start to see some of the Narn refugees become Rangers too? At least that's kind of where I'm hoping it goes. But, you know, the fact that, you know, Drasl knows all and sees all and is going to basically, I think, feed, Sheridan and the Ranger Army a lot of intelligence in terms of what's going on out there in the universe is going to be very, very important going forward in the series. But I'm really excited to see where the whole thing with Epsilon 3 goes. I think that's going to become a crucial factor here going forward.
Kevin.
I wanted to talk about the actor that plays Drasl in this episode, because you want to talk about a voice. And while I agree with you that W. Morgan Shepherd has an incredible voice, you know, so does John Schuck, and he's incredibly good in this part. All respect to the first actor that played the part. I'm kind of glad that this went the way that it did, because it made a lot of sense. The Epsilon 3 machine, extends life, so he'd probably look younger, and so that all makes sense. But it definitely gives a good opportunity for, in particular, two very good guest actors in this particular episode that really drove the acting with it, along with what we've already talked about with both Peter Jurczyk and Andreas Katsalas. I've always liked W. Morgan Shepherd's acting. He played a serial killer in the first MacGyver show and was very good in that. So I always enjoy seeing him.
Nicole.
So I thought the scene at the end with the Rangers and Sheridan finding out basically that they exist and all that stuff was pretty cool. And one thing I noticed was, there was like Minbari human, but why am I blanking?
Rangers?
Kosh was there. So I'm assuming Kosh is in on it. But what it made me think of too was a couple episodes ago when Kosh said he would teach Sheridan, right? So when Delenn said she's also going to give him authority over the Rangers because she's been leading them, and then Kosh choosing to teach Sheridan a couple episodes before, I'm kind of wondering, like, I feel like I feel like Sheridan was chosen to kind of like lead this group and lead the charge to battle the shadows. So it was really cool. Like, I was just kind of having some light bulbs during that scene, just hearing, well, first of all, Garibaldi being on the inside. That was funny, Emily, how you're like, wait, what? You knew about this? That was good. But I just thought it was really interesting. And I almost wonder if it's connected, that, Kosh had agreed to teach Sheridan because he said he was going to battle even if he died to take care of this or whatever. And then Delenn also like kind of not relinquishing control, but like sharing control of the Rangers with him. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And I'm in my head, my questions and predictions were going off with that because I felt like that was a significant moment.
Blake.
Well, and you think about that, Nicole, and think about the reference back to that dream sequence with Sheridan from several episodes back with You Are the Hand. We said up front, that dream sequence would get explained as we went through the season. And this could connect. This is one of the theories that connects back to that dream sequence is, Sheridan is being given partial control over the Rangers with Delenn. And you think about that setup. So it all comes back. Everything links back to some of those pieces. So,
Justin.
Now, I know that they claim B5 is neutral territory, but is it really? Because we now have had two major characters who Sheridan went to Jakar and said, whatever resources, contacts I have, I will help you retake your homeworld. And even Franklin was feeding Jakar intelligence he was hearing from the med bay. So you can definitely tell that a lot of people on Babylon 5 are rightfully on the side of the Narns. And I think that's going to prove to be a bigger plot point, hopefully later on with, them supporting the Narns over the Centaris.
Well, and this goes back a lot farther than that even too, Justin. They were sending supplies to the Narn. So this is...
And of course, helping all the refugees on board and everything like that. So it just seems, it's just definitely something that, of course, I think Londo's going to have a bitch fit about it, but they're making the right moves.
Audio podcast, Blake. Audio podcast. Nicole.
Also, too, this made me think of something else. I feel like, going back to my point about Sheridan being chosen, I feel like each of the alien races kind of chooses a human. Like the Minbari have chosen Sinclair. It seems the Vorlons have chosen Lita Alexander. And I think she's going to come back at some point. And I feel like Sheridan is now being chosen as well. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe there's a connection between all of them. Maybe there's a connection or a reason why, but I almost feel like each human it's like they're in the inner circle. Like they're going to get wisdom and knowledge from these alien races that other people can't get because they're chosen. And I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there are specific people. Like, yes, Garibaldi may know more, but I don't think he'll ever have the same access as some of the stuff from like Kosh or Delenn as Sheridan would, for example, or Sinclair. So I don't know. That was just something else I picked up on. And it was just something I thought was notable to bring up because I do feel like there's specific humans that are chosen for bigger roles in the universe. And it was just really interesting to me, kind of, seeing how everyone's kind of playing their part, but like, I feel like specific people are chosen and put into those places. So again, I could be wrong. I'll find out in 2 years, but it made me think of that, this discussion and just the episode.
Kevin.
This episode was directed by a cinematographer, John C. Flynn. And I think it's worth noting that particularly the scene where Londo is looking out the window at the Narn homeworld, but other places in the episode too, you can really tell that it was particularly well done and well shot because of the fact that it was done by somebody who has the kind of skill set that John C. Flynn has. It was particularly well executed in my mind.
Andrew.
Sort of in the same vein as the cinematography thing. One thing I wanted to point out was in the ambassador meeting, there's a shot where Londo is framed on one side, but then all the other ambassadors are on the other, kind of just perfectly illustrates the divide between like what's supposed to be neutral territory, and like kind of just shows that Londo's kind of alone in this whole cause now.
Nicole.
And something that Andrew just said made me think of something in that scene too, is that when, first of all, you could tell Sheridan was pissed. Like he did not appreciate the way that Londo was talking to him or anybody. But what I really loved was how he stood up and like held his ground. And then Delenn jumped up right away and was like, and then Minbari will back him up. And I was waiting to see like everyone else start standing up and saying, we'll back him up. We'll back him up. That didn't happen. But I think that sentiment was made very clear that like, you done fucked up, Londo, and the Centaris are on the shit list. So I thought that was really good. Like thing that Andrew just pointed out, like it just made it very clear. You can see where people stand on this situation.
Well, I think some of that though, Nicole, is when you think about the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, there's only two other powers in that room who could stand up there and tell the Centauri to sit the fuck down.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the Minbari and the Vorlons. Look at it from the rest of the league, though. I mean, who's to stop the Centauri from going for one of them next?
Yeah, the league can't.
So they're not going to stand up.
Yeah, they can't take that chance that the Centauri aren't going to turn on them.
Yeah. I guess I didn't think about that. And the one guy who has like the tusk face thing, you can see he was just like shaking his head. And like you could tell they were all like, fuck this guy. But I thought it was good that like, you know, they made it clear that Sheridan wasn't alone on this.
I think we got a good idea of how, I don't want to say insignificant, but insignificant the league is. I mean, look at the Marcab. We found out the Marcab got completely wiped off the face of the galaxy a few weeks ago, and they only had 2 billion people. We have 7 billion people right now on the planet. So the League aliens are much smaller races than the big one sitting at that big table, without a doubt. Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with what Nicole and everyone else was saying, but I honestly can't wait to, as much as I love you all, I can't wait to be done with this series, because I can't wait to go back and, you know, listen to all of the discussions about, like, I'm watching this, I made notes about how hard was this scene to film, that council scene for everybody, like how difficult that must have been for the actors involved. But then again, like even Peter, you had said, had a lot of fun with it because he really got to like, you know, blow out his character or whatever. But what was Andreas? What was everyone else thinking during this scene? Like, it's just something that moved me very powerfully. So I can't wait to kind of go back behind the scenes and kind of learn more about that.
Only about a year and a half to go, Justin. You'll be fine. Kevin.
I will share this. You know, Andreas Katsulas said that the whole scene gives him goosebumps, and he said that it was like having your whole identity erased. And he just, the power dynamic, you know, you can tell how much in this episode that it shifts.
Well, yeah, just sitting and watching him just sit there with his head down, and as Londo is just berating over him, and like I said, the whole thing just really got me. And again, yeah, you're 100% right. Like, he got stripped of his ambassadorship. He's citizen Jakar now. Where does he go from there? Who is he now? And it's just such an incredible scene that is going to ripple throughout the rest of the series.
You know, that scene with Sheridan too, after that, was very moving. You know, you really felt like how much he felt bad for him. But, you know, we had a Beyond the Rim where we talked about this scene, and Scott and I disagreed adamantly about what Sheridan should or should not have done during that scene. And I still think he should have used the gavel and said, you know, fuck off, Londo, we're not doing this right now, and let Jakar save some face. But, and I'll let Scott talk for himself, but, you know, he felt like Sheridan really didn't have a choice in the matter, but I disagree.
Or even when Jakar, during the scene just between him and Sheridan, when he sits there and says, the last person I shook hands with like this, I was at war with 24 hours later. That was Jakar saying, don't fuck me over. Let me know I can trust you. Like, or it's basically him saying, I'm going to trust you. Don't make me regret it. It's kind of what I took from it. But
ironically, I read both those scenes differently. Obviously, as Kevin alluded to, in terms of the league and the council, Sheridan has to show a bit of neutrality. Even pointing out that he gave Jakar sanctuary is a fine line. And I will say that like everything else in Babylon 5, chickens come home to roost. But along with that, to your point, Justin, I read that as Jakar was not even talking to Sheridan at that point. Jakar was talking to himself. He said, the last time this happened to me, we were at war. But because the reason why I say that is after Sheridan leaves, Jakar closes his fist and smiles.
Oh, yeah.
That was a point of hope for Jakar. That was the first time in months that Jakar, basically since he was told by Sheridan, the same guy, will help you with supplies. And he was like, okay, I'll take it. That's all I can get, but I'll take it. It was the same thing here. Jakar finally had a ray of hope. After everything has been done, his family may be dead. The Kali may be dead. He's the only one left. He doesn't know if he's going to be dead tomorrow by a Centari assassin. But this one guy came forward and said, I've got your back. So I don't think it was Jakar ever telling Sheridan, you better not screw up. It was Jakar saying, thank God, or thank Jaquan.
Okay. You know what? Fair enough. I get it. Okay.
That's just how I read it. Jessi, what do you got?
So going back to the scene where Londo strips him of his ambassadorship, that whole fucking scene pissed me off. Like the whole thing just was infuriating, right? And so what gave Londo the right? Because they just conquered the world? Is that why they like? Because I don't know. I guess
your leadership surrendered. He no longer had any position.
And in the treaty they signed, they said that the Centari are now in charge. They are protectorate of the Centari.
So that was the authority to remove, because each world or each people gives their appoints their own ambassador. I get it.
Basically, okay. Narn is now again a colony of the Centauri. Therefore, they have nothing to say in the council.
I can't wait to see what happens, because this is like this is horse shit, and I know somebody's gonna get back.
I love the allusions here to World War II, and it's interesting that when this episode first aired, it was the 50th anniversary of the year, and actually in the UK, this year aired almost exactly on the 50th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. And so it's very interesting, a lot of the allusions to World War II. And JMS flat out said in the Usenuts, yeah, there's a lot of allusions to World War II. I wasn't just, I didn't stumble into that. So to your point too, Jessi, to the victors go the spoils.
It makes sense.
Nicole.
Another thing I noticed, or I thought was really great in that whole scene of the meeting of the ambassadors and everyone, was when Jakar was sitting there with his head down, feeling really defeated. Londo was being dickface. He stands up and he gave that really passionate and like powerful speech. And the last thing he said was, we will be free. And he walks out. And I thought that was like indicative of the fact that he was like, you can do what you want, but we're never going to give up. And it may take 1,000 years. But that speech and that, like Blake was talking about the acting earlier, that was awesome. Like that was so powerful and impactful. And then Scott, something you said, I also noticed that too, when Sheridan went to go see Jakar, and I wrote it down, and they were talking, and, he shook his hand and he said, the last person I shook his hand, I was in war with in 24 hours. And then they had a really like solid handshake. And then when he walked out and he was holding like his hand or like, and he smiled, I thought, oh, he really does trust Sheridan. And he that's what I was thinking. Like I was thinking he really does trust him, and he really feels like he could take his word. And yeah, it was wholesome, and it was almost like sweet to me when I noticed that. I wrote that down. I said, sweet ? Wholesome, but I thought like it was kind of a nice way to end a really shit situation. Again, more good writing. But I also kind of took it that way, where maybe he was relieved or hopeful or happy, or just he felt like he was seen, and he had somebody on his side.
Jakar is in the middle of a dark ocean drowning, and the one guy throws out a life preserver for him, and that's what that is. And then he realizes, okay, we're not done yet.
Can we switch to Londo?
Sure.
And being a wanker. One of the things I noticed is when he's looking at what is being done to the Narn homeworld, and he almost looks like he might feel a little bit bad, but it feels more like he feels bad for himself, because this is going to get blamed on him. he actually seemed hurt when he came back and Garibaldi's standing there as like, I have security for you. And the tone of his voice is like, I have security for you, but I wish I didn't because you need to get fucked up right now. Like, he actually seemed way more hurt by Garibaldi being beyond angry at him and not even wanting to talk to him than he did about seeing the destruction he ordered.
Someone who he considered a close friend.
Yeah.
Is now just cold.
Realized,
is now just cold at him.
Yeah, that might be the point where he realizes just how much he fucked up, but it's too late now.
No, I caught
it sooner.
Yeah, I caught that too. And I wrote down, I said, ooh, Garibaldi's pissed. But I feel like it was almost like completely, like he was a stranger. Oh, we have secured security for you. Okay, bye. There was no emotion. There was no empathy. He let him know, fuck you, bro. Like, you hit the nail on the head with that.
And again, this was alluded to. JMS never throws anything out at you. Remember the bar scene where Londo sat there waiting for his friend to arrive, and his friend never arrived. He's losing everybody. Nicole.
I do want to point out one thing. This is so minuscule and stupid, but it was so badass. When the riot started between the Narns and the Centari and like the bar area, one of those Centari did this wicked jump kick spin. It was so badass. Like, I wrote it down and I highlighted it. I was like, badass Centauri spin jump kick thing. And that was epic. But also, too, it was like, I knew the minute that news report went on, all hell was going to break loose. I just didn't think it would be like that extreme of a fight. And then all of a sudden, this guy's doing spinning jump kicks, and like, it was wild. Like, it just went from 0 to 100 real quick, but had to point out that badass kick.
Jessi.
So as the head of security, I'd have locked that motherfucker down before that announcement ever even came out. Cause I was watching it and they're like, yeah, we've got it set to go as soon as it airs. And I'm like, why are you waiting for that? I would lock it down, tell everybody to go to their quarters and call it a day, because they knew it was coming and it happened. So I was like, they could have got ahead of that one, but they didn't.
Could they lock it down without people understanding why? I thought that was kind of why they waited. I mean, yeah, it would have been smart if they had been like dispersed now, but.
Is it Jessi? If the last 3 years have taught us anything, they couldn't shut down the fucking Walmart without people going batshit.
Yeah, but I mean, is the captain of the ship? I mean, I would think that he would have the ability to do anything he needed to do for the best of the ship. I mean, you're right.
Well, but he was down slumming it on the planet. He wasn't even there.
You said what?
He wasn't even there for that, because that was Ivanova doing all that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, she's second in command. I mean, I would, like, when, captain is away. Mm-hmm. So I would think that they would be able to do it. I don't know. I mean, clearly they didn't, but they even said it was going to happen, and then it happened. So, I mean, I get it. Like,
I kind of took that as they were getting ready to mobilize for what they knew was coming. Mm-hmm. And I kind of took it as like maybe the broadcast hit sooner than they were really.
Got it. Yeah. That's what I was.
Speculation.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking too, is they were planning to go through it. They leaked it or whatever.
I thought it was a good Dr. Franklin episode, because he took Jakar aside and was like, hey, I just want to give you a heads up about this information. I don't necessarily know what it means, but it's definitely different, and you should probably know about it.
So here's a question for especially some of the newbies, because Franklin has not been a favorite character at the start of this season, or even coming out of last season. So are any of you starting to change your minds on Franklin as a character now that we're towards the end of season 2, compared to what we saw first season, even start of second season?
I've always liked Franklin. I thought he was endearingly problematic in some ways, but I've always liked him. But I feel like he's had his flaws and his moments, but I definitely feel like he's ramping up. And like the last couple episodes, especially, I think he's taken a turn to the less creepy and problematic and the more awesome. But I will say I've always liked him from the start. So, but I'm liking him even more now.
Jessi.
I think I'm just waiting for him to do more creepy shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like he was so, I don't know, he was so inappropriate, so creepy sometimes in the first season. So I'm just like, I don't know. I have hope. I don't hate him. I never hated him. I just, I just wait for him to be inappropriate. I mean, he's clearly been much better this season. I feel like I remember saying that I hoped it was him that was the main character that died. But I don't hate him. Look, I just hate him more than I hate the other characters. I don't know.
I don't hate him. I just hate him more than I hate the other characters.
I hated Ivanova for the entire first half of the first season. So listen, I'm fickle. I change my opinion quickly. It's fine.
This is true. Andrew, what do you got?
No, I was always kind of indifferent about Dr. Franklin, but yeah, I started liking him episodes ago.
You guys just didn't understand that Dr. Franklin's not on the Narn side or the Minbari side or the Centari side. He's on the side of life.
When did Franklin become Delenn?
Yeah.
And inappropriate touching. He's on the side of inappropriate touching.
I think I
sleeping
started
with patients then.
I think I started liking Franklin during the Cats in the Cradle episode with his father. I think that's when I finally started coming around to him, but I don't dislike him now. I think he's a moral, even though he does some morally incorrect things from time to time. I think overall he's kind of a moral fixture among the command staff. So,
okay, changing the subject slightly, just because you reminded me of this. So a couple episodes ago, we had to point out the fact that nobody bothered to clue Sheridan in to the fact that there was a mysterious previous version of Babylon 4 that just sometimes appeared and disappeared right next to their own station. So this time Drasl appears to him in his room and he's like, oh, hey, Drasl. So somebody obviously clued him into something about what was happening on the planet down below. So he said
he read the reports. So
they finally shared the reports with them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I said, oops, we probably should give this guy a download of something.
Because I kind of wondered, if he's going to come out of there and be like, damn it, Ivanova, what else? And they're all going to trade uncomfortable looks and be like, well, okay, so there's this device down below that steals your life and gives it to someone else.
And they have a big ass ray gun. See, Emily,
the whole thing that cuts through a few decks of the station. There's some shit that's happened.
Emily, they actually recorded their reports and they gave him a copy of the reports that they always have.
Does that happen? Because I don't feel like it does.
Okay, so we're going to take up a collection for a plane ticket so that Emily can fly down to Missouri and kick Scott's ass now.
Oh, I can wait till he moves back.
For our audio listeners, Emily did just give Scott not one but two birds over video. So
not the first time and not the last time.
Oh, definitely not the last time. Probably not the last time tonight. We don't know.
True. That's true.
It's early.
Any other narrative before we go into questions, predictions, guys?
You guys want to talk about Zathras?
I was just going to ask.
Nicole hasn't shipped anybody yet, so go ahead.
Zathras is going to get shipped with.
Ship Zathras to somebody, please.
My question was, refresh my memory. Zathras I'm getting him confused with the guy who previously ran the rig and then the guy who was on B4. He's the guy who was Zathras. I'm like
B4.
No one.
That's what I thought.
B4. No one listens to Zathras.
He was the cat man on B4.
Right, and he was the one that
he's not the one.
He's not the one. Yeah, he's the one future Sinclair saved. I thought so, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to speak on anything until I confirmed that, and I didn't want to Google it because I didn't want to get yelled at.
Good girl. Okay, with that. Oh, never mind. Nicole has something else to say, even though she fucking muted. Go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry. Then I was going to say, so Zathras is helping run the machine, is what I gathered, what Drasl said. Did I hear that correctly? He said there's other people down here with me running this. So
and not just Zathras.
Right. So who the fuck is down there? How did Zathras get off of B4 to there? That really threw me for a loop.
Drasl mentioned having access to some of Sinclair's information that Sinclair hadn't told other people about. So he's got connections and abilities.
Well, here's a question just to get you all newbies stewing with your tinfoil hats is you've got a guy in a machine that has access to all of space and time, and he's yelling, where's Zathras?
So he wasn't necessarily on the planet.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Or when is Zathras?
It's
where is
Zathras in this?
Damn it, Blake.
How is Zathras?
They'll stew on that for a while.
So anyway, with Elvis is down there also.
Tupac.
Ironically,
Tupac.
I'm going to throw out this spoiler.
Andy Kaufman.
I'm going to throw out this spoiler right now. We will 100% see Elvis in Babylon 5. The end.
Promise?
And that's not even a joke. I'm serious. We will see Elvis in Babylon 5.
Yeah, is that the other shit episode that we're waiting for?
The one season 5 episode that wasn't written by JMS.
If I remember right, it's actually a pretty fucking good episode. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Elvis does appear.
Neil Gaiman doesn't strike me as an Elvis fan, but I could be wrong.
Let's go ahead and go into questions and predictions. Again, for those who are just joining us, the newbies have not watched past the long Twilight Struggle. So they're going to ask any questions that they have lingering, and then also give us any predictions of what they think is going to happen next. We will then jettison them out the airlock and answer those questions and predictions right after the credits. So let's go ahead and go to Andrew first. Questions and predictions.
2 questions. First, what do Zathras and Drall have to do with each other? And the second question, what help will Drall be able to offer? 1 prediction, Jakar and Londo will remain enemies throughout the rest of the show.
Emily, questions, predictions.
All right. Well, I have 2 predictions and 7 questions. I think 7 since 1 actually got answered. Are you ready? So prediction, I guess it's a prediction or an assumption. Drall is assisting Sinclair with his time hopping, but I don't think we'll actually get to see him again since the actor who played Sinclair had health issues. But I think he was the one helping Sinclair get to B4. The murder spider ships are biological or organic, similar to Kosh's, because we actually saw one of them got hit in the fight scene and it looked like it lost a limb. And it sounded like there might have been a pain response. Ready for a question? Let's see. Was the machine that Drall is using built by the first ones? Basically, who built the machine?
Thanks for the clarification. I love it.
Yep. Does Londo actually feel any remorse for his actions, like having the shadows attack Narn, or the absolute ludicrous surrender demands that he made on behalf of his government? Like, does he feel bad for being that kind of raging asshole? What are the shadows trying to protect other than their region of space? Is it something beyond just their little region? Because, I mean, they're getting involved in shit and attacking people. So why are they doing this if they're not protecting anything? Is the Great Council going to try to avoid working with the humans to fight the shadows since they tried to interfere with Dylan's prophecy? Because they tried to keep her on the council and prevent her from continuing her work with the humans.
Trust issues. Trust issues.
Yes, I have so many, and this is a great show for me to watch and express them. Is Zathras and his species, I guess, from the neighboring planet withdrawal? Like, where do they come from? Where did he originate? I must know. I must know his origins. Let's see. You answered the question about the mass driver, so that's great. Is Zathras a ranger? Is he considered a ranger, or is he just like a little gopher for Drall?
No one appreciates Zathras. Nobody. I am looking forward to the Chris Nolan movie Zathras Begins, though.
All right. Last question. How long has Dylan been a ranger? So many questions.
I will answer that one right now because you saw it on TV. And that is when Sinclair informed her of the Rangers. Remember the hello, old friend that he sent to Garibaldi and Dylan?
Oh.
That's when she found out about the Rangers.
I feel like that's something she should have been maybe aware of earlier than that. And I don't know. Yeah, that doesn't.
Sorry if it doesn't compute with you, but that's what
it doesn't feel right. Okay, it just doesn't feel right.
Maybe I'm trying to stop you from fulfilling your prophecy.
You would. I'm done.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Justin, questions, predictions.
Okay. Question. Will being under political asylum on B5 actually protect Jakar from anything? Will Londo or anybody still be able to kind of get at him a little bit? Then question number 2. What kind of further genocide will we see against the Narn people on behalf of Centari? And how are they going to kind of make it look like they're just protecting themselves, or it's all for the good of the Narn by that they're wiping all these people out? Predictions. Londo will take out Rifa eventually. I'm going to put my foot down on that now. Prediction number 2, we will definitely, I think, see more of Zathras. Prediction number 3, more and more Rangers will come to Babylon 5, and I think the planet will actually become a de facto base for the operations of the Rangers. And then
did you mean station or did you actually mean planet?
Planet. The planet
so
itself.
Epsilon 3 will be the staging area for the Rangers.
Correct.
Got it.
And then my last prediction, EarthGov and Night Watch will notice Sheridan's actions and will actually either infiltrate the Rangers if they have not already. There's way too many people now involved in this secret to have it stay secret for long, especially if either Zach or Londo find out about the Rangers. EarthGov's going to find out, and they're going to get involved in that shit.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool. Nicole, questions, predictions?
I would say question-wise, I just want to know more about Zathras. Like, what's the connection with Zathras and Drasl and Epsilon 3? And is he physically there, or is it just a mental connection since Drasl can go into people's minds, essentially, or come to them as a vision? I was really interested to know more about that. Also, Justin kind of mentioned it, but Jakar and his safety, like, basically, at this point, the Centari view him as like almost like he's got like a warrant for his arrest. You know what I mean? So if he leaves Babylon 5, is he going to be like, say, if he goes somewhere off the station, is he going to get like nabbed or something? Like, because they want to bring him back. And then I guess, prediction wise, I think that we're going to see more of the Rangers showing up. Kind of like, I don't think Epsilon 3 will be the staging area. I think Babylon 5 is going to be like the main area for the Rangers, and that's going to be kind of like their starting point. So I think that, yes, it is neutral territory, but that's also going to be like Ranger Station essentially. And we're just going to kind of see that grow. And I just think that I guess another prediction would be that Sheridan is kind of like really coming to his own, and we're going to see a lot more from him, and also Delenn too. It seems like she's taking more of a leadership role as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more from them in the next couple episodes and seasons as well.
And Jessi, questions, predictions?
How long do we have to wait till we see Jakar absolutely like MMA beat the dog shit out of Londo? Like I need to see some no boxing gloves type ass whooping from one to the other.
Ever.
I want to see Londo do some Centari ballerina fighting. Because it's not the first time we've seen that Centari weird jump kick thing.
Can you just imagine though that Londo gets into like his sword fighting stance and does a jump kick, and Jakar just wails the shit out of him.
Yes.
Pop.
Oh, it's like that Indiana Jones scene where the guy's going crazy with the sword, and then Indiana Jones just pulls out the pistol and shoots him. That's going to be Jakar versus Londo.
No way, you've got it all wrong. We've seen the Narn get their asses kicked repeatedly. They look tough, but they actually all have glass jaws. Meanwhile, we know nothing about their anatomy. Centaris have 6 dicks, and they have huge kangaroo-like leg muscles.
This is true, because the one time that we saw Narn's fight, they did like the crane fighting style, like
yeah, and every time a Centari gets into a tussle, the first thing they do is fucking leap into the air. I'm serious. It's not the first time we've seen it.
So what you're saying is I'm never going to get to see fucking Jakar beat the shit out of Londo. Okay.
No, we're just giving you shit. We're not going to tell you one way or the other, but we have to have fun with this.
Thank you for answering my question. I have no predictions.
Even if he kicks his ass, he can't kill him, because if he kills him, then 500 Narn will be killed as a penalty.
I'm glad somebody brought that up. You guys mentioned the Londo speech and the Sheridan speech and everything else, but no one talked about the escalation. If one Centari is killed by a Narn, 500 Narns are going to be murdered, and
including the family.
And they will ensure
Including
the 500 include the family.
Mm-hmm.
That was so fucked up. When I wrote that down, I was like, that's fucked.
Because they're trying to commit genocide.
Well, and that has basis in Earth history. I mean, that happened in World War II. Justin could probably talk at length about that particular topic. That's not an invitation, by the way. Just saying that you could do so.
Yes, I can.
That's such a dramatic escalation. Like, if you're in Jakar's seat, do you even take it seriously? Like,
if you don't take it seriously and the Centari decide that they were going to do it, then
yeah, I mean, I guess it was more to the point of, obviously they're not joking, but it's just like they're bastards. killing everybody wholesale anyway.
They're not going to wait for one Centari to die. They're going to find any Centari that dies. They're going to use it as an excuse to kill more Narn.
Correct.
Like it's not going to be a cause and effect.
Trial.
Yeah, it's going to be a kangaroo court, and it's just going to be just, as I said earlier in my questions, it's going to be more genocide against the Narns. Like it's not. They're going to do it regardless.
We'll go ahead and send our newbies out the door. And we will, after the credits, come back with a spoiler conversation about all these questions and predictions. So remember, next week we'll be here again to talk about Comes the Inquisitor.
You're like,
I'm gonna come.
and Inquisit. And again, in 3 weeks, so the 21st of May, we will be having our season 2 live wrap up. In order to be involved in that live wrap up, because we will involve the audience, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notify button so you know when we're going live. And for our podcast listeners, we will release the recap at the normal time, normal bat channel, normal bat station, all that good stuff. So until next week, when we talk about Comes the Inquisitor.
I'm gonna come.
Thank you. God damn. I've been Scott, and with me has been
Emily,
Justin,
Blake,
Kevin,
Nicole,
Andrew,
Jessi,
and Mike.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, click all the buttons except for the down arrow. Make sure you leave a review, all that stuff, and come join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to join the conversation. See you next week. Unless you want to be spoiled, then see you in a minute and a half. Bye.
bye.
we did it.
We did it.
We
It's
did
not like a
thing.
bunch of Narn in a prison camp. We did it.
Oh, God.
I seriously wanted to like throw something at the TV. I was so angry.
Same.
Scott has that effect on most people.
Yes.
Let's see. Anybody on this podcast not flipped Scott the Bird yet? Anyone?
Thank you for listening to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Gray17podcast or youtube.com @Gray17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Gray 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. Again, this is a spoiler section, so if you have not watched past the long Twilight Struggle, or if you can't remember what happens, this is not the section for you. For everyone else, we'll go ahead and dive into the questions and predictions we got from our newbies. So, the first question is, are we going to start seeing Narns be Rangers?
Well, that depends. Are we going to consider that Legend of the Rangers actually exists, or are we just going to pretend that never happened?
I was thinking the same thing. There is a Ranger Narn in Legends of the Rangers, but I don't even know if we're going to talk about that. I will say to that point, though, the Narn do get a new job, but not the Rangers.
Yeah, I was going to flip that.
Yeah,
because they'll become station security when Earth does the breakaway and Night Watch tries to take over and they lock them all in the cargo bay. Narns take over security on the station.
And they're used as a red herring, and then exactly the red herring ends up happening. It's pretty good. I love those 2 episodes. I can't wait to do those.
We get all Talon all the time, so it's even better. I've kind of combined some of our Zathrai questions. Much like there's multiple Zathruses, there's multiple questions. So here we go. I'm just going to read through them all, and we can answer them all. What do Zathras and Drall have to do with each other? What does Zathras offer to help Drall with? Is Zathras physically on Epsilon 3, or is he a projection? Because Nicole is smoking doobies or something. And where does Zathras come from?
Well, I guess it depends on which Zathras you're talking about.
Exactly. Is it Zathras, Zathras, or Zathras? Or Zathras?
But he is definitely there. That's not a thing.
Now, what does he have to withdraw? I think he dust drawl every so often.
Well, somebody's got to spritz him with some lotion or something once in a while to keep him fresh. Just empty his chamber pot or...
No one appreciates Zathras.
Oh, he's got to have a Stadium Pro or something.
Disgusting. Yeah, he's the maintenance man down there.
Yeah, that's the key of it. The Zathras clan or brotherhood or whatever you want to call it is the main keepers of the Great Machine. They didn't make the Great Machine, which is another question we have here in a little bit, but they're the ones that keep it because Drall just kind of, is the battery.
He's the operating system.
Yeah. You need the IT crew of Zathras to handle it. And what does Zathras offer as help? Well, again, he's the cleaning crew, but one of them will be sent to B4 to help with the transition through time, but we aren't there yet. Along that same lines, the Great Machine, who built it, and was it the first ones?
I think they said no at one point, that it was not the first ones, but it is old.
Yeah, it's definitely old. It was not the Varns, who was the original maintainer of the machine. They found it like everybody else. It wasn't Zathras's whatever. It was somebody else. Now, JMS has never really said what they would be. He did say that at a time he was toying with the idea that the Great Machine would have been another made-for-TV movie with TNT or whomever. So I think he's been kind of keeping that one in his back pocket in case he could ever use it. But we just don't know. Moving on to Londo and his fun. Does Londo feel any remorse?
He probably feels a little, but it doesn't make much difference. He will later, but at this point, probably a little, but not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Londo fluctuates back and forth. He's accepted his role as the great tool that brings the Centari back to their prime. And I think he is fully aware that it comes at the expense of his own soul. And I don't think he necessarily doesn't feel remorse about it. I just think it's not lasting.
Yeah. And I think it's cute. I think Nicole did it this time. Every time somebody's like, oh, this is it. This is where Londo kind of felt like he screwed up. But yeah, he keeps falling into the same damn traps every single time. Even if he feels remorse, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because he's still going to be making the same damn mistakes every single time.
He walked into the chamber to talk to Rifa, and he's like, straight up front, this has already cost me one of my best friends. What's next? You know, like I'm ready to do the next awful thing that I know is going to suck.
You know, and I brought it up. Did he summon the shadows or did Rifa? We never actually find out. I was just curious to see what the newbies had to say about it.
Know why? This actually brings up some good questions because I don't know why anybody assumed that Rifa had a direct connection to Morden, but at the same time, I have to ask myself, why does Morden only go through Londo?
Oh,
because
Morden
Rifa
actually
seems like a much more willing stooge.
Morden actually flat out said the last time we saw him that he's working with Rifa.
Did he?
Yeah. He said that we'll just go talk to Rifa. He's already been working with us, and he's more. I think he said he's more open to us or something, more conducive or whatever.
Makes sense.
He said it to Veer.
That does change my perspective on that whole scene and whether or not it was a trap or not. Because I, up until this point, was very much under the impression that the shadows only responded to Londo.
No, I don't know if it was just an empty threat to Veer. Because Rifa, obviously, we don't know because he says, we need your friends to help out. But Morden flat out says that Rifa seems to be more, I forgot the quote, but more open to working with us anyway.
Well, now hold on. Now, was he confirming that he talks to Rifa or merely saying that if Londo doesn't play ball, they'll go talk to Rifa?
Yeah, that's what I meant. I don't know if it was an empty threat or if he was just being, telling him what's actually going on. We don't really know.
Okay, because the latter situation, I do remember thinking in that episode. So
yeah, I think it's open to interpretation.
Another quick point of order, I guess, and this is again something I guess I could have brought up in the first half, but somebody in the first impressions made a remark about Londo giving his big demand speech on B5 and seeming remorseful, and at no point to me during that speech did he seem remorseful. Quite the opposite.
It's not during his speech, but when you watch his facial expressions when Jakar is giving his at the end, I think that's what they meant, because there are some facial expressions there that the weight of it is landing on Londo that he knows where this leads.
So moving on, how long do we have to wait until Jakar beats the shit out of Londo?
It's about halfway through season 3 when Jakar uses the dust and goes after Londo, which is the other fantastic scene between the two.
A little earlier than that. Yeah, it's.
That was right after the breakaway.
First third. It's before the breakaway.
What was after?
It's before the breakaway because he's in jail when the breakaway happens, and
that's right. They let him out.
Comes and gets him and lets him out and says, "You better get the heck out of Dodge because we got some shit going down."
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And of course, at the end of the day, Jakar will kill Londo, but I don't think that's beating the shit out of him. Speaking of Jakar being in prison, we'll be in under political asylum, protect Jakar. And if Jakar leaves B5, will he be arrested?
Yes, and yes.
And he will, and we will see that. And he will be told when he leaves B5, if you leave, you will get captured, and he does get captured when he leaves.
Well, he has that little trip, though, before he gets captured.
That's true.
When he tells the Rangers he needs to get to Narn and be about, yay by yay.
But that was kind of with Londo's sort of blessing, though. If he hadn't had that, he probably would have gotten arrested on that incident.
Correct.
That's true. That's true. What further genocide will we see against the Narn?
Oh boy, it's going to be a long struggle for them.
Would you say it'd be a Twilight Struggle?
Yes, I would.
Okay. I mean, we're going to see, the Narn are never truly going to come back from this. We're going to see a lot of good action from the Narn again, them taking over security on B5, them being liberated, but at the end of the day, the Narn are beaten and destroyed people, and we're just going to continue to see that. As they were asking this question, I just envisioned Jakar as the jester in the Emperor's court and that whole thing, which of course turns out fine because Jakar gets to, distract the Emperor and gets him killed. But still, it's terrible what happened to the Narn, and we will see atrocity after atrocity, which is why I so cathartically love And the Rock Cried Out No Hiding Place, because, it's so well deserved when it happens.
Yeah, the Narn homeworld is just absolutely obliterated at this point. It may never be that, probably won't ever be the same.
Yeah, it's hard to say that there's further genocide. I think the genocide's pretty much done. What you're going to see now is cruelty.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Salt in the wounds. Agreed. Moving on to the Shadows. What are the Shadows trying to protect aside from their homeworld?
Nothing. They're trying to blow it all up.
Exactly. They just want the galaxy to burn.
Mm-hmm. Some people just want to watch the world burn.
And the rest are Vorlons. Is the Grey Council trying... I swear, Emily has to find somebody who is the evil, maniacal person behind the curtain every time. Is the Grey Council trying to stop Delenn from fulfilling her prophecy? I also think this comes up because Emily's doing a rewatch on her own, and she must have came to a Grey Council episode, because the Grey Council has nothing to do with this episode, but she still brought it up.
At least she's not shipping. They're not really trying to stop her. They just don't want to deal with her. They think it's all nonsense.
They do their best to interfere with her, and that's why she breaks the council.
But some actually help her, because they gave her the one gave her the Triluminary.
True.
And said you may need. But for the rest of the council, like Narun and them, it's go to B5, do your little nonsense, and just be gone from us.
Yeah.
We think this is a joke. We think this is bullshit. But if you want to go over there and do your little, the part that's always got me is when she shows up with her own little fleet of White Stars.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like, talk about government projects under the radar.
Well, that's the key thing too. Not only do the warrior cast now have 4 members of the council, it's the religious cast who lost 1. So the religious cast has no power anymore. They are 2 out of 9. So they are just sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. The guy who gave the Triluminary was a member of the religious cast. He's got no power. Moving on to predictions. The shadow ships are biological, which we did see this week. The shadow ships merge together, and we saw one kind of get hurt. And I emphasize hurt because they're right. The shadow ships are biological.
I'm surprised it took them this long to catch on to that.
Yeah.
They're screaming and all of that.
Right.
Jakar and Londo will remain enemies.
Yes.
No.
Well, not for
a long
quite
time.
a while they will, but not
Yeah.
not in the end. Yes.
Well, not even the scene, my favorite scene, I put it on the Peter interview after we got to the Beyond the Rim section, is right before Londo gets his keeper. And he knows he's getting a keeper. He's been told that. And he has that one moment in his quarters or lounge or whatever with Shakar. And Shakar forgives him. He says, I can't forgive your people, but I can forgive you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's long before he comes up and killing him. I love that scene.
But even there's the scene on the White Star after Sheridan and Delenn get married, and they're sitting there together having a drink.
Hey.
But you mentioned Jakar killing Londo. I think that's the last act of friendship.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Oh, sure.
100%.
You know, that is him doing the last favor to Londo of killing him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they end up killing each other in that scene, but it's that last act of friendship to end that.
He's putting his friend out of his misery.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I have a question. Would Veer have gotten a keeper then?
That was the intent, I believe, was that the Drakh wanted to continue to control the Centari throughout. So if Londo had died of natural causes and the Keeper had an opportunity to, recognize that, the Drakh would have found the next Emperor and gone ahead and give them one. But since Jakar ends it and the Keeper doesn't have time to warn anybody, that's the end of the line.
Well, and I think, didn't some of the novels also establish that the Rangers stepped in and protected Veer until they got the...
I'm going to get hate mail, but I haven't read the novels, so...
I thought it was.
I wouldn't doubt it. And of course, we do have the Keeper that may or may not go to Sheridan's kid. We know it's in the urn. That's all we know. Eventually, Londo and Rifa will have a confrontation. No.
A little bit.
Nah, not at all. Nah.
Yeah, so real quick, according to the novels, Veer led the resistance movement against the Drakh that was able to expose them and force them to leave.
Excellent. I love Veer. Veer, the Golden Emperor of Centari.
Good job, Veer.
So I'll do this just to make the editing easy. Eventually, Londo and Rifa will have a confrontation.
A little bit.
They're going to have a little bit of a confrontation, that's right. But at the end of the day, the next question or prediction is Londo will take out Rifa, and that is somewhat correct, but not at the same time.
I mean, he took out a hit on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's Londo who metaphorically pulls the trigger, but it's the Narn who are the bullet.
Yeah.
And when they beat the ever-loving shit out of Rifa, it is a stand-up and cheer moment. Again, The Rock cried out, no hiding place.
And I just love that episode that you've got this gospel performance juxtaposed to just beating the shit out of Rifa.
That is when B5 is firing on all cylinders. Those episodes right there.
We talk about that episode a lot, but it's for good reason.
That's one of the ones where I would love to be able to show the newbies reactions, and we're working on something there, but I would love to be able to have the newbies actually be in front of a camera when they watch that scene. It will be beautiful, especially Nicole. I think she will pump her fists and start yelling. Moving on to Drall and Zathras again. Drall is assisting Sinclair with his time hopping.
Nailed it.
The great machine is what helps move B4 to the past, along with Sinclair. And to that point, we will see more of Zathras. We will.
Well, it depends which one.
We're gonna see Zathras or the Zathrai twice more. We're gonna see them on Epsilon 3, one of them, and we're gonna see War Without End, Zathras.
No one listens to Zathras.
That was Zathras' brother, Zathras. More and more Rangers will come to B5, and he should have stopped right there.
Yep.
He should have stopped.
Just stop.
I even gave him room to wiggle out, but then he said, and Epsilon 3 will be the staging area.
Oops.
So close, but yet so far. No one goes on Epsilon 3 except for those who are allowed on Epsilon 3, and the Rangers aren't allowed on Epsilon 3. Not to mention, you can't really do much from 3 miles down except for when you're Drall. Or
it's a good place to
Ivanova.
hide, though. I mean,
they will have refugees down there, though, because that comes
true.
up later during the Shadow War that they start letting them put refugees and wounded on Epsilon 3.
But the Rangers are going to be staging from B5 and from the forthcoming White Stars.
Yeah. We'll have that one right.
And then finally, Night Watch and Earth Gub will infiltrate the Rangers. No, but that would have been a fun story.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I do like that we got a couple of mentions, and the newbies haven't called it that yet, but the Conspiracy of Light And then the Army of Light is mentioned in this episode. But that would actually have been a fun little story if the Night Watch had infiltrated the Rangers, but I doubt they would be able to because those dinguses couldn't figure out how to, be like a Marcus and understand Minbari culture as much as the Rangers do. But Heisenberg infiltrates the Rangers. It's a Breaking Bad reference for those who play the home game. Or for those who don't know Breaking Bad, Zordon infiltrates the Rangers.
The Rangers.
Anything else you guys want to talk about with this episode?
Got nothing.
I have said before, I think this is one of the best episodes of season 2, but my favorite episode of season 2 is next week. Comes the Inquisitor. I fucking love that episode.
Yeah, it's really good.
It is.
That is going to be, we're going to need to get extra tinfoil for that one.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Once Justin and a few of them get their heads around Sebastian and the implications of the Vorlons in that, we're gonna need some goddamn tinfoil.
Especially when they figure out, or when it's revealed where he came from.
Yes.
It's just, oh man.
There is so much there. It's a tour de force for Bruce Boxleitner and Mira Furlan. They just eat the scenery left and right. And yes, at the end, you can just call me Jack.
Well, and Wayne Alexander's so good in that episode, and he played such a different part later on, but it took me, I don't know, a watch or two to realize that he was the same guy playing Lorianne. They're just so different.
I don't think I ever noticed until you brought it up like 4 episodes ago.
Really? It's such a different part, and he does both of them so well.
All right, well, we will talk more about Sebastian a la Jack next week. And then again, we're only 2 weeks away from, oh my God, he's never going to let us hear the end of it, when Justin finds out that the Vorlons are angels in the Fall of Night. We're only 2 weeks away from Justin just eating it up the entire episode. Brace yourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So until next week when we talk about Jack, I've been Scott, and with me has been
Blake,
Kevin,
and Mike.
Please be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, click all the buttons, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
So much to do, so little time. We must get to work. Zathras! Zathras! Never around when he's needed.
Oh, it's a lot better than we usually do. All right, chums up. Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my God, he just ran in. Oh my God. God damn it, Leroy.
It's not my fault.
Leroy, you were just stupid as hell.
At least I have chicken.